I didn't really know what to present on. But I'm starting my second term as the vice president for the OST tribe. Previously, I worked for the National Native Children's Trauma Center, working in all tribal communities, trying to do for tribal communities that invited us to do trauma informed care and training. So I went around and saw a lot of different tribes, and I really hadn't done that before. So it was a good experience to see other tribes, and also to really appreciate what we have here at home. We have a lot, we're very rich in culture, and we know who we are. So that was a really good experience. And previous to that, I worked at the University of Colorado, Centers for American Indian, Alaska, and California Research. So these presentations are very different. I know Dr. Warren from doing that work. But those presentations are very different. So I was like, okay, well, how do I present now? So it's gonna be more of like a picture look page. With not a lot of numbers or graphs that you are used to. One thing I realized at the tribal levels, we need our own data. We don't have our data. Coming from the research world, that's what we live on and thrive on, is numbers and telling the story of those numbers too. I was, we talked about we need data, but we also, that's our story. That's how we tell stories now to these funders who give us money. But also, we have to work together. That's one thing that's come across all the work I've done in the previous positions I've had. And even especially now in my position as vice president, working together has been the main thing. We've been able, we wouldn't be able to do a lot of things we've done. And I'll explain some of those things we've done together to really protect our, originally I put on my title, protect our future, our present and future generations, but really it is protecting our past generations too. Our ancestors have done a lot for us, and we need to protect what they've done, that path they've laid for us. So I corrected it here in this title, but I want to let you know I corrected that. Thinking of that, made that change. So when I first came into office in 2020, I was new to politics, didn't know what I was doing, but I know that wherever I go, I try to help people. And so the main thing that we had during that time, the main issue was COVID-19. And I know we probably don't want to talk about COVID-19 anymore, but it's really important for us to remember to take stock. What's going on? So when I first came in, COVID-19 was the main issue. And I've been watching the pandemic and watching what was going on. And the tribe in Oregon established a COVID-19 task force that was doing a lot of great work. And so I asked them to join their meetings. And so I would just jump on and listen to their meetings. And it was difficult, right? It was like building a plane while you're flying. And they had gone through so much at that point. So I would jump on the meetings and listen and just, try to figure out ways we could support and how we could help out. And so on the bottom left, you can see Dr. Butterbrook. I don't know if you guys know Dr. Butterbrook. I want to apologize for that picture of him, but he had some crazy jump on the Zoom all crazy, right? So I'm sure some of us had colleagues who jump on Zooms all crazy. That he would have like cats in there and all kinds of glasses, we all just knew. But we've all been on these meetings, and actually Zoom has really opened up our world to be able to have meetings. A lot of our council meetings probably going to make more without Zoom. So really appreciative of Zoom and our ability to connect that way. We had Uncle Rick join today via Zoom, right? That's super cool. But in the beginning, we were learning and we were jumping on together and trying to put our heads together to see what we could do. And a lot of the opportunities came about. And I think this was the first time I met my good friend, Chairman Frazier from Cheyenne River, when we met with Dr. Fauci. And so it really allowed us to be able to connect with so many people from all over. And so I just want to note that. And I always try to think back about these times because it was hard during the time, but we learned so much. And through that, joining those meetings, listening to the task force and lending as much support, the task force went to my office to take over because it was currently under the Law and Order Committee. So Law and Order Committee granted me the task force, the COVID-19 task force. So I've been working on the COVID-19 pandemic since I got into office. Starting just listening and then getting the task force put under my office from the volunteer committee. And so when we first came in too, it was also important to remember then, right? So it felt like forever. It was only like a year we had been in it, but we had lost a lot of relatives during that time. And so it was important for us to remember them. And so when we first came into office, we had a virtual honoring for them. We set up a TV and we did a virtual honoring because that's what we could do at that point. It's always, like I said, it's always important for us to remember and work together. And, you know, when we got in, we just called some friends and said, hey, we want to do this. You know, can you bring in a TV? Can you come help us set it up? And they did, right? And I think that's the other part of working together is reaching out, asking people for help. And it's something we did right off. And people answered because we all wanted to help during the pandemic. We all wanted to figure out how we could be a part of helping and protecting our people. And so we call these folks who are on this picture, and they came. Currently, Mr. Lunderman is a council rep now from my district, but he came back then, right? We have people in our community who always want to help. We just have to figure out ways to let them help, right? And provide them that opportunity, and people will answer. And then we also, I put these on here because I was thinking back and thinking like all the things we did, right? And we had to work with, if you saw on that first Zoom, that Dr. Joe on there, the CEO of IHS and Heinrich, she's awesome. She jumped on every meeting, right? We worked with her closely to figure out, because right in 2021, the vaccine came. It feels like we've had it forever when we think about it. We feel like we've had the vaccine forever. But it only came out in 2021, and we had to figure out phases for that. Who got it first? And any country got it first out of a lot of places, so we were able to roll it out quicker. We had to figure out, we made adjustments to it as well. HHS and CDC had come up with some guidelines, and we looked at that and said, no, we want to change the age range on that. We want folks who are, you know, instead of waiting to 70, we want 65 and older. You know, we have a lot of health risks, you know, so we all work together to come up with our own phases for the tribe. And then we started to roll it out, different phases, essential workers, right? Who are essential workers for us? It's important for us to figure that out. It's super interesting when we sit down together and start talking like who's essential, you know? There's a lot of essential workers in our community, and it's important that we recognize them and get them that support and help first. But it took all of us to kind of put our minds together and figure out who are those people who needs the vaccine first, and how are we going to roll this out. And thinking back, that's really interesting, right? I hope you guys all watch a booster, you know, because we have a booster, a couple boosters. But when we think back, it just is kind of like, oh, that was in 2021. It wasn't very long ago. And so we've come a long way, but we've come a long way together. And another part of our efforts, that was really kind of one of the biggest issues we came in, was how do we bring people in? Like I said, people wanted to help. How do we bring people in? How do we have people get the word out to wear your mask, social distance, you know, wash your hands and get vaccinated? So we had community members who just reached out. Like I said, we started to just reach out to folks. And I don't know if any of you know this, the president's office, she's a staple in there. You know, everyone just kind of said, yeah, I can take our picture and put it on a poster and encourage other people to protect themselves from COVID-19 and also to get vaccinated. Back then we had to kind of encourage people, right, to get vaccinated, even though we had these phases. And some people were ready to get it, but some people were very hesitant, so we had to work with that. So we had all kinds of people start to get vaccinated. So we started to reach out to our community and say, why did you get vaccinated? Would you mind telling us why? And then we're going to do a social media campaign. That's really kind of how we're all on social media, but social media during the pandemic was kind of like the lifeline, right? To stay connected. And even though we had a social distance physically, it's the way we could stay connected with people socially. So we reached out to all kinds of folks. Lisa Poyer was a nurse at that time. You know, she was tired of wearing the N95. I had some friends who worked in dialysis who were tired of wearing N95s. You know, they hurt. They're very painful. You have to wear them constantly for long hours. We also had people who worked in the schools. Cindy Gallego was one of them. She wanted to protect her wisdom keepers and future generations. And we heard that from a lot of people. We're doing this to protect other people. We also had young people, right, who were in school, who were virtual, and they wanted to get back to seeing their friends in person. Also, like, people believe in science. Like, I believe in science, and I want to protect myself with science. We had a number of people say, yeah, we'll share our story. We'll talk to you, and you can put us out to encourage the rest of the community to do this. And so that's how one way we continue to get the word out and talk to people. And then we started to do community vaccination clinics whenever we could open up for everyone. So we had to team up with IHS and get out there with the different programs to get out there to encourage people and also use that barrier, because in Pine Ridge we have huge distances. And so we would host all these different vaccine clinics in all these different schools across the red, and it took coordination. It took letting people know, getting the word out, but we needed to reduce those barriers to get more people vaccinated. And then more people got vaccinated, you know, and during the initial vaccination, when we think back, we protected ourselves from getting COVID with the vaccine and spreading it. But as the virus mutated, which viruses do, COVID, the vaccine wouldn't necessarily prevent you from getting it or spreading it, which is very interesting, right? I mean, now that we think back. So even though now the vaccines will prevent you from dying or getting severely ill, right? So as we progress through COVID, like I said, I know we're tired of talking about COVID, but it's really good for us to take stock and remember. We came into 2022. We got here in 2021. I know some folks had their gatherings at home. You know, I don't think we had our power on 2021. We only had it this past summer. You know, because we're really taking those prevention measures. In the beginning of COVID too, we also had border monitors up, protecting our borders. You know, but once the virus mutated enough where we can't stop the virus at the border anymore, right? We need to pull these people in to protect people in the inside. And so that was another way we had our helpers out there, the warriors on the front line, right? At our borders, checking and asking people questions of, do you feel sick? You know, have you had the virus? Things like that. But once 2022 came and we realized, you know, we can't stop the virus at the border with the border monitors. We need to pull these folks in and you know, have them respond within our boundaries. That's when we had the highest spike we've ever seen with COVID. Was like in January and February of 2022. And so the tribal council restructured the border monitors and created a COVID-19 response program. And they gave that response program to my office. And so all the border monitors that were coming in from the borders to work inside our borders, they were assigned to my office. This program was assigned to my office. So we had to think of what should we do, but at that point, at that time, we had our highest numbers. And so we were swamped and we were bringing people on, and we set up a whole store in Billy Mills Hall, basically, because we were wiping out the shelves in Louis, formerly Sioux Nation. So we were wiping out the shelves of all their food, and people were like, we don't have any food to buy for our house, just regular groceries. So we bulk ordered a bunch of food, set up a grocery store, got our people who were trained, and basically they were just running food and supplies to all the people. So we had so many people who had COVID at that point. We had our quarantine site after running all those things, right? And I think the main thing there was just like, our people were ready. They were ready, willing, and able to go out and help whoever needed it. And they came in every day, and you could see some of them on the bottom of that bottom picture. They were just ready to help, however they could, and they were amazing. And then, you know, we continued to do that, and then the numbers slowed. And also during that time, we had to figure out how do we, because there were such high numbers of COVID positives, we had to figure out like, how can people report their positive online? We started a website, and we started to try to home tests. That started to become more available at that time. And so we tried to figure out how people could report their positive home tests online. That was a little herky-jerky. I don't quite figure that out. But we tried to streamline that process. We also started doing saliva tests out in communities and just continued to test out in communities so people had that option. We also developed, throughout this whole process, we developed a mass communications for the Pine Reservation called Everbridge. And that was a partnership with Steve Wilson in emergency management, who worked closely through the COVID pandemic. And so if anybody's in here, if you're from Pine Ridge, you want to know information, you want to get a text right to your phone about any urgent information, we put out today that the roads are closed. And we have no travel now. We put out all kinds of information. We put out the waters out, we put out the COVID numbers, we put out, we have missing persons on this text communication. So if you text OST PSA to 888-777, you'll get those emergency messages straight to your phone. So this is something that else that came out of COVID and our partnership with emergency management. And many things have come out of this. And this is one cool thing that did come out of this is that we have this mass communications. We also got emergency management drones with our partnership. So they're able to use those drones when we have missing persons or any other time. So a number of things have come out of this. Also, we've had a number of laws that have been established. One of them is that if you are vaccinated, you get the incentive of, I believe it's to the $1,000 incentive. So the OST has an incentive for getting vaccinated. And I mean, we could go back and forth on that, but I think that's one of the best investments we've made with some of our monies is giving people money to protect themselves with the vaccine. And so we also have laws where if you are in school, you have to be vaccinated as well. So we put in a number of laws. There's a number of laws. We also have risk levels too. We have different colored risk levels, and based on our percentage of positive, that has now changed to these CDC COVID community levels, which change every Thursday at 5 o'clock. So we update those every Thursday at 5 o'clock. And we only use our mask mandate when we're not high levels now in Pine Ridge. So they're low or medium, masks are mandated, but when they go into high, then masks are mandated on the Pine Ridge Reservation. So there's been a number of things it's evolved. It definitely has slowed down. And since it has slowed down, we've shifted too. We've shifted our COVID response. And we shifted our COVID response to taking care of our elders because they're still high risk and they don't have a lot of services. They can have elderly meals throughout COVID, like the beginning of the pandemic. So we partnered with elderly meals. Our COVID response program partnered with the elderly meals. We also partnered with other programs in the community, including renewable energy. And we started to do gardens. And we also started to deliver meals to elders from elderly meals. So we established the gardens at every elderly meal center. And then we also worked the Red Cup Renewable Energy Garden. And all the produce we got from that, we give to the elders. When we go deliver their meals, if we have produce at that time, we take it to the elders. We're also going to be switching to learn, teaching them how to butcher, teaching our team how to butcher so that they can butcher and provide food, provide meat to our elders. So also, in addition to this, it's all layered, right? And we're trying to learn everything. But when food sovereignty is a huge thing in our communities, it's huge, but we need that workforce. So we can use our COVID response workers right now and teach them and train them. When our food sovereignty starts to build, and we have places for them to become butchers or become gardeners for communities, they'll have those skills. They'll be ready to go. So we're also training our food sovereignty workforce with our COVID-19 response while supporting our elders in our community. So these are some of our workers. They became really good. A lot of them really never garden in their life. And so when, you ask them like, what do you think? And they really enjoyed it. And they were like, we need to figure out how we can garden all year. So we're looking at some of those underground, building some of those underground gardens and really helping them to really figure out how we can make this year round. Because some of them really, really enjoyed it. They also submitted their vegetables into the Once Upon Festival, which is out at OLC, the one launch. And they won a lot of them won prizes for their vegetables. So it's really, really awesome to see, having this type of program with our own community members, giving them different trainings. We have them doing canning now as well, gardening classes, all kinds of stuff. We partner with Oyate Techa and Title II. They do our gardening classes, which is partnering with all kinds of people through our COVID-19 response program. And in order, by doing all those partnerships, that's what makes it work. That's what makes all of it work. And it builds that infrastructure for our future food sovereignty, for our elders, to have that support, to get more programs. So I'm really thankful for our COVID-19 response program and our response workers. They've been a joy to work with. There are, our warriors really. They came from the front lines of watching our borders inside and adjusting and transitioning, with the COVID-19 pandemic. And so they're truly our warriors in our ability to thrive and not just survive, but thrive through this pandemic. So I'm really thankful to them and appreciate and honored to be able to have that connection to that program through my office. And this is us during the powwow. We went out, and we always try to practice what we preach. So we tell them to, always wear masks and practice what you preach, and we test weekly and all that. But they're just a joy to work with, like I said, and always down for whatever, always ready to go and always ready to help people. So I truly appreciate them. There's also, so that was a lot about COVID, right? Because it's been with us for a long time. And I really like to think back about it because we've done so much and we adapted so much. And so I apologize if that was overkill on that, but we have to keep learning and growing. And that's what our ancestors did with a number of things. So we are demonstrating that today and through our COVID-19 response, and we'll continue to do that as we move forward. We also, COVID is something we have to deal with. There's a number of other things that will come up, pop up, including we will always have the fight with oil companies. We know that. And so Standing Rock has always kind of been the pillar and the center for that. And so Chairwoman Alfire from Standing Rock invited the tribes to come up and continue those conversations so that we can continue to let the Army know that pipeline should not be pumping oil, which it is, and to let them know that they need to not just consult with us, but get consent. And so there's been a number of consultations around a number of these issues. And also we know that even locally, Jenny Gulch, they're trying to do gold mining at Jenny Gulch. And we as a tribe have opposed it, but we also reached out to our citizens, our tribal citizens, to see if they wanted to sign on to oppose. So it's also including our people, right? Like we as a tribe can do resolution, do ordinance, do this and that. But when we have our people's voices behind it, that makes it that much more powerful. So we put out a request for our tribal members to sign their name onto our petition to say no to gold mining at Jenny Gulch. And I thought that was pretty cool because we did it online. Now we have the ability to do a lot of things online. We set up at our powwow, and that people sign up there, but we can get things online now. So the pandemic has really opened that up as well. Our ability to use the internet and reach people and get people involved. And then lastly, one of the other things that really stood out was when we all came together. when we marched, and met as tribal nations, but people as well, at the Elevate. And it was after the Grand Gateway situation, which we were all up here partaking in LNI or, but there's still some things this city needs to figure out, right? They're in our treaty territory. None of these hotels give any kind of state or federal rates. So there's a lot of work this city needs to do. And when we came together after the Grand Gateway situation and discussed some of those issues, one of the things that our office brought was charging a quarter on every $100 that is used or that is spent in the city, especially on rooms, because we know we come up here a lot and stay up here a lot. I'm up here until Sunday, even though I have one. But I'm here until Sunday, staying in a hotel that doesn't give me a government rate that I have to pay taxes on. But taking a quarter off for every $100 and putting it towards a fund for mental health services in the city, for all people in the city. This would not only benefit tribal folks, but it would benefit everybody in the city. There's also already a model out there in Denver called Caring for Denver. All their ordinances, all their things are up there. I brought it to the attention of Councilwoman, what's her name? One of the councilwomen up here. So I've been bugging her to say, we need to move this forward. She's currently running for mayor. So we'll continue to bug her. But that's something that can happen. That's something that can happen up here. We can't say, give us the tax money that we're spending here for the red, but we can say, here's how you can use your tax money up here for the benefit of everybody. And these attacks and these confrontations and these racial profiling and all these things, this racism, it causes mental issues, right? So why don't we request the use of that tax money for mental health citizens for everything? Because it impacts all of us. So out of all these, there's a number of things that will always come up, including these where we have to switch our mind and bring other people to the table, including our non-native relatives who are in city council or at the state level or at the federal level. But we all have to always come together to try to figure out solutions to these issues. One other piece that I truly enjoy in my office is our internship program. We started an internship program right away. When I was campaigning, I brought youth voice in because it's always fun to work with you. Let's be real. Sometimes way more fun working with youth than adults. No offense to anybody, with myself, I can get bored. But they always bring this whole new piece, right? This whole way of thinking. We always talk about our youth, but how do we bring them in? And so we have an intern program, and we started off the first year, just piloted it, trying to figure out what we could do. Youth are like wrangling cats, though. They're super busy, they have all kinds of stuff. Many youth are down at the civic center or whatever, right? They have all these activities going on. So it's really hard to wrangle them in sometimes. But we were able to harness them well. We had them volunteering at camps. They volunteered at the camp on Marshall Camp. They've also, you can see on this bottom, your guys' right, they went to the boarding school and they sang there. So we try to include them anywhere and everywhere we can. We know their voice is important and then we know they have a lot to offer. We also try to include them on panels to talk about those issues that would impact them. So when the Kentucky Racial Social Studies Standards issues started to come up, we started having a forum with them. We invited Chairman Fraser, and he joined. We just discussed how do you feel about this? What do you think about this? What do you think we need to do? We also included our new interns, so we have a new cycle of interns, so we can have a number of them every year that we can draw on, and they can collaborate, and they can be mentors for each other. So our new interns and our old interns, we had them join an intern panel this year for our elections, so they could tell us what their issues were, that they wanted the candidates to think about, that are impacting them. And they're very honest, they're super honest. And so we always appreciate that. So we always try to figure out how to bring them in and how to create space for them, because that's always important. Because there are future leaders, there are current helpers, and they deserve a place at the table as well. So we try to create that space through our office, and they're always really enjoyed working with as well. We also try to teach them about all the pieces of government, because our government is only impactful when our people are involved in it. And so when we first came in, we had the youth, we talked about it, and we were like, you guys want to bring forth a resolution to support June as Pride Month, or lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, two-spirit people. That's a month in many different cities and states, and we also know that the LGBTQ2S plus community is very vulnerable, and we just wanted to show our people that we support this community. And so our youth interns brought the resolution forward. It passed unanimously, and it is now a resolution for the overall tribe that June is LGBTQ2S plus Pride Month. So not only do we want to pass resolutions and ordinances, we also want to follow through on them. So we set up a number of events in June so that people can celebrate this month, since we do have a resolution for it. So we usually show a movie, LGBTQ2S plus movie at New Theater. This year we showed True Grit. The year before we showed RPO. I would definitely encourage you guys to check out True Grit. I think it's on a lot of streaming services now. It's about a native relay racer. Indian relay, yeah, she's really good too. Charmaine from Wind River. So I highly recommend checking out that movie. It's really good. It's really cool to show it on the big screen. She did a Q&A with us virtually. Once again, we can use technology to connect. And so it's super awesome. Super awesome. We have a color run walk and sachet in Pine Ridge, down Main Street. And this year we had our first ever Grand Marshal, which was Siren Songs. He's from home. They're amazing. They brought their friends. We sashayed and color run walked down to the book at OCS and then back. And then we shared a meal. But we just try to create space. So once we create these laws, these resolutions supporting things, we have to follow through on them to show that we actually are doing that, right? All of it's always hard, but we try to do this for this month because our youth intern brought this forward. The last thing I want to talk about, so that my youth interns are awesome. I appreciate them a whole bunch. We try to do a lot of work with them. We're going to be bringing forward some more work with them in this new year. We're going to try to start working with the student councils. And since we have a youth, youth affairs committee now at the tribe, it's an actual committee with council members and reps, so you can take their concerns to that committee. So I'm going to work with my interns to bring forward some work and try to get some funds for student councils, because student councils, we all have student councils at our schools, but do they have funding to do what they need to do, right? We can say, go ahead and start your student council and have your meetings, but how can they do things if they don't have funding? One of the most effective student governments is at the University of Colorado in Boulder. And they have a huge budget. So they're able to do all kinds of stuff for their student body because they have a budget, they have money. So we're going to try to implement that where we help our student councils develop a needs assessment of their student body. So once they develop the needs assessment, how are they going to follow through on that needs assessment and meet those needs? And then they'll have a budget to actually purchase those things for their student body to meet those needs. Then at the end, we'll check in and see, did it work? You know, what did you learn from this? What did you learn the needs are, how to meet them? Did you actually meet the needs? You know, sometimes we think things will meet those needs, but they won't. It's more complex. I was using the example of housing as a concept issue. We know we have, it's a need we have. But at one point, our tribe was given a whole bunch of FEMA trailers. You drive across the reds and you see all those FEMA trailers just sitting. And I was like, what is going on? Right? Even me, I was like, this should work. But you also need water. You also need electricity. You also need a septic system, right? You also need to feed your land. You know? So we're gonna do some processing like that with our city councils, have them identify the needs and really help them think about how to meet those needs. Think it through and then evaluate at the end if they can met those needs. So that's what our youth interns are gonna be taking to the Youth Affairs Committee in the new year to see if we can get some funding for that. We have to work out some kinks, but that's our project. But the last issue that our office has been working on really hard with a number of organizations is the OST 1 task force. And this was established in July 20th, 2022. And it was established for a number of reasons. We have a community group that let us know their concerns. But I also went to the Native Americans in Philanthropy conference. And it was around the time, I think of the pastor where the Supreme Court decision in Oklahoma. And before that was the Roe v. Wade Supreme Court decision, where both of them were struck down. And it was clear that the Supreme Court has no clue about Indian law or individual rights. And it's a little scary. And so I went to this Native American philanthropy and said, like, we're never getting our money from the federal government. Like, we're never getting the money we need. So we need to start looking elsewhere to figure out how we can be creative in getting money. And only 4% of philanthropic monies is given to Native American organizations. I don't even know if they're given to tribes or organizations. Only 4%. And so the Native American philanthropists are really trying to figure this out too, like how do we get tribes involved? How do we get tribes philanthropic monies? Because they also know we're never getting our money from the federal government. Or I just, you know, for police force or anything, right? They're never going to fully fund anything. And so we have to think outside the box. So I was there and I went to the National Indian Child Welfare Act presentation. There was only like 5 of us in that presentation. And I was sitting there thinking, we all need to be in this presentation because the Brad King v. Holland case is coming up. And it came, the oral arguments were on November 9th, but it was coming up and I was like, we all need to be in this. Because it doesn't matter if we're urban, if we're rural, if we're federally recognized, if we're state recognized, or, you know, it doesn't matter where we're at. ICWA is going to impact all of us. If it was upturned, it's going to impact all of us. And so we need to figure out how to find, you know, what can we do, right? Like, so, it's a little overwhelming when you think about it. So I went home and we started this task force. It had been established already. They had already had a task force a couple terms ago. So they reinvigorated it, put new people on there. They included our CPS, the Equal program. It included our Youth Justice Center. It included council reps. It included community members. And it has grown since. And that was actually at the end of July. It has grown. We have some people join our Monday meetings, state people, we have Casey family people, we have all kinds of people joining our meetings because we know this is important. We all know we need to work together to build the capacity. In the beginning, I was saying we need to plan and prepare for whatever outcome of Rakhine. So we've been planning and preparing. You know, when you can see things on the horizon, you have to get ready. And so that's what we've been doing is we see it coming, and no matter what happens with that Supreme Court case, whatever we do is going to be helpful, whether it's upturned or it's maintained. Whatever we do is going to be helpful because our big one CPS program needs help, right? Our children need help, our communities need help, and we need that. So what can we do? And there's a number of things, like I said, we can do. Like do a declaration of a state of emergency if it was CPS. So we did that on August 4th, a couple weeks after we started our task force. So the OST has a declaration of the state of emergency, and we use that because in there it says we use any means to help our influence CPS and our children. So we then turned around because our CPS and ACOR are part of our group, the task force, and we said, what do you need? Right, what do you need? And they said, we need people. So we put in a resolution for requesting 20 BIA social workers for a year. That's what they said they needed, right? So we put that request in, we were denied. But you have to try, right? You have to try all those avenues. You have to try anything you can. And it took follow through on that too, right? Calling Tim LaPointe, calling him, emailing him, saying, what's the answer, right? Because he doesn't respond very well. Calling him, you know, we put it on Facebook. We put our declaration of state of emergency and our request for BIA on Facebook. Because Tim LaPointe doesn't respond very well, right? So how do you get people's attention? How do you get people's attention around this? And then we also, we were assigned an attorney, which is super awesome. from our committee, from our law and order committee, because they're the ones who informed us. So some of the council reps who are on the task force said we need an attorney, so we assigned this attorney, which is super awesome, right? And so this attorney, we communicate with them and we work with them a lot. And so they brought to our attention that there's a federal bill called 8954, which is the Strengthening Tribal Families Act. So we did a resolution in support of that. Then we started to reach out to all of our state representatives to say, hey, we're supporting this. Will you guys support it as well? We didn't get a straight answer from anything, but we have to try, right? We have to try. We have to try to reach out to everybody we can and try to get everybody, let everybody know and what we're doing, what we're trying to do. And we know that the best thing we can do is the day-to-day, everything on the ground that we do, right? When we call CPS or when they call us and they need help, whatever, we try to do that. That's the best thing. We've signed on to the League Free, right? That's one thing I asked the National Youth Child Welfare Act at that conference. I said, what can tribes do? They said, just sign on to the League Free. I said, we already did. What can we do on the ground every day? They had no answer, right? So our task force is figuring out the answers because we have them in us, in our communities, right? And I continue to pose that question to these larger national institutions. What can you do on the ground? What can you do for us on the ground? None of them have an answer. But I continue to pose it because I want them to think about it. Because a lot of them are tribal themselves. Our BIA, our DOI, tribal people. They need to start thinking about us on the ground and what they can do to help us on the ground. Because we all have to work together on this. And so we've done a number of legal things. We are also getting ready to take some legislation to the state. So this week at the tribal chairman's meeting on Friday and Saturday, I'm trying to get the equation on. I can't get it on a previous meeting, but they recessed because public safety came up with, and they didn't get to that issue. But we are drafting legislation for the state. The state did sign on to the meeting's brief. So the state actually did try to get some legislation in 2004, 2012. We didn't go anywhere. So, like I said, we can see things on the horizon. We can see it coming. We have to do something. Even if the state doesn't want it, we have to do something to protect our children. We all have to do it together. We have to continue to move forward together, you know, and I think that's what this conference is about. Us all working together to protect our children, our most vulnerable. What can we do, you know, moving forward? So I just want to thank you guys with that. I also worked with the Circle of Care, and they were supposed to come today, but they couldn't pick it up. Our Circle of Care program is figuring out how to segregate our behavioral health at home. And so there's a number of pieces of our behavioral health we know that we need to modify for our people. And one of them actually is we're going to have a meeting with them because we know a lot of our children and the CPS and people programs aren't brought back to us on the reservation because we don't have the services. So that's one of the pieces we're going to see if we can build into our 6 or 8 behavioral health plan is therapeutic services for our children who have CPS. So we can bring them back. We can have some dedicated providers so we can provide them at home and take care of them at home. We all know, like I said, we have the answers ourselves. We have the answers in our communities. We have the answers in each other. It just takes us asking for help, asking people, can you do this? Can you show up? And you guys showed up today, so I just want to thank you guys for putting up with all my ums because that's been a long time. And for listening to me, I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Bringing health and wellness to the politics. That's what it's about. I like that. That's exactly right.
That work?
You're
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's great information there. We all need to be aware and know what this is there. Let's give it another big round of applause. Appreciate the good words that you share, and I was just telling her that wellness needs to be brought into our politics, into our tribal governments. Our officials need to be talking about wellness also, about this sacred path of life that we're on, this Olo that moving forward in a sacred way and strengthening in our spirits, needs to be brought into our tribal politics, into the decision making that happens there. Wellness needs to be promoted by our elected leaders. So sure do appreciate that sharing all the things that the tribe is doing. And there's always more and more that we want the tribe to do, but we won't take and strive it at a time, because not all of our tribal leaders are in wellness. And so the ones that are, we need to continue to support them and listen to them and promote them to stand in front of us to share what they're providing for our communities. So appreciate those good words. Another one I just want to reiterate is that ICWO, when she's talking about that graph up there is so powerful about how the domino effect, if ICWO goes down and more and more of our tribal and our native nation rights are going to be trampled upon. And so we need more and more of our tribal leaders to step up and talk about that. And not only that, our tribal citizens, because each one of you are members of a beautiful nation, and that's just what we are, citizens of that nation. And so we need to step up also as tribal leaders, not only just the ones that we elect ourselves, and sign on to that and promote and help that those initiatives that are moving forward, especially with the Supreme Court and cases that are going on. So I should appreciate those good words. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think everybody looks like about every street. We're having supper and dinner on the hall, and we have to move it up a bit. Patrick, Dr. Mousseau again. Speaking of issues about COVID. Whether we know it or not. Scared, especially when I first started. I think they left it right. Having no funerals. Straight from the funeral home to the creation, that was kind of repeating. And you know, breathe properly. I know many do not get to breathe properly. I'm in a good wake throughout the evening, you know, and I'm processing a bit. Sharing a meal to give away our way. But we didn't get to do that. The some are still receiving process is still hasn't been positive at all. That kind of looked at it with COVID. Equal. It's very important to pay attention to that. Earlier, community meetings, span statewide, nationwide, to collaborate together and help each other out. Put aside everything and help each other out. I think that would be very helpful. Cool. Thank everybody for coming today. Like I said, big meal, we're gonna come to roast. Mashed potatoes. The whole shebang. Stick around. Let's see you guys. Sometime we had a conference. Somebody was walking, I don't know, somebody older, somebody was walking in front of the land. Who is that, Alfred Hitchcock? We established a conference called Best in the Workplace. 15 years. It's too bad it gets passed on. That was a good conference. Have a meeting night before, good meal. Really enjoy each other's humor. All through the conference. Marcus was a young man.
And I was back when we used to have it at Gateway. If we would have still had it over there, we might have been able to put down some of that racism. But you know, they had that tube. They used to have that tube, that water slide. Oh, it was fun. Until my brother said he went in it, but he's kind of a big guy. He plugged it up. Hey, those kids are just mad at it. Don't let him in our slide anymore. It took about an hour to get him out of there to really grease him down. I'm not gonna say it's there you go. Yeah, good times like that. They said that, sometimes it's scary speaking in front of natives. They said, because I'll tell you guys a story about Northern Cheyennes. Any Northern Cheyennes in here? Anyway, one time they were going to have one of these kind of conferences, and they had a comedian. Oh, there's going to be a comedian here in about an hour, so don't head out. Stay here. His name is Mike Factor. Mitch Factor is going to be here. It's going to be our comedy tonight during our dinner. But anyway, they did that. They Northern Cheyennes. They called upon this comedian, and he was a ventriloquist. So he had a puppet, and that puppet had braids. He had war paint and feathers in his hair. And what was a little Indian puppet that was on his knee. And that comedian, he did his research ahead of time. And just like Oglala's teased Rosebud and Rosebud teased Oglala's, over there in Northern Cheyennes, they tease crows. And so that comedian, he did his research ahead of time, and he turned all his jokes into crow jokes. And so he's up there, doing his comedy with this puppet and telling his jokes. Man, those Cheyennes were laughing and laughing. A really good time. Unbeknownst to that ventriloquist, there was a crow man in that audience. And oh man, he was getting pissed. About a half hour into it, he was so livid, he couldn't take it anymore. Finally, right in the middle, one of the jokes, he jumped up there, hey, who the heck do you think you are? Who? You talk about my people like that. We still have our language, we still have our ceremony, our clan system. We got Crow Fair, TV capital of the world. I don't appreciate you talking about making white people the butt of your jokes. Oh, God, man, a comedian was like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm just doing a show here. I apologize. I don't mean to offend you. That Crow guy said, you shut up, this is between me, that little guy, and me. Pride gets in the way. My brother, like I was telling you guys, I kind of grew up poor. And my brother, same way, but he doesn't say that. He doesn't say I didn't grow up poor. He said I grew up humble. His grandparents raised him just like me. I was kind of became a grandma's boy. You know, my grandma kind of took me in under her wing. Same with my brother. He's a sled of Pueblo. His grandparents, they lived in a little log cabin. Said their floor was dirt. And his grandma would even sweep that floor and she put water down, sprinkle water all over that dirt floor. She'd keep her house nice and clean. Said we weren't poor, we were humble. My grandparents raised me humble. But because of that, the way that he grew up, he always enjoyed whenever we go to different workshops in like Denver or LA or Rapid City. He'd always go around these neighborhoods in these nice homes. You know, the biggest homes. Well, just walking around, you know, kind of thinking in his mind, someday I might have one of these homes. I might live one of them, just admiring these beautiful homes. And he was doing that one time, and somebody called the cops. Hey, we got suspicious cities walking around in that neighborhood. Sure enough, the cops came. My brother was walking down that sidewalk, and that cop even turned his siren on. Oh, my brother, his feathers went up like this. That man pride went up. And what? Just because I got dark skin, long hair, you don't think I can own a home like this? Racially profile me and try to write this script? Boy, what they got after that cop? That cop said, well, do you live around here? Oh, my brother was so angry. The feathers were so up, he didn't want to back down. Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, I do. He said, started walking away, and the cop said, hey, if you live around here, which house is yours? My brother pointed. He said, see that house right there? That's my house. Didn't want to back down at all. He started walking away, and the cop said, hey, if that's your home, then show me proof. Still didn't want to back down. All right, then get out of that cop car. He was bossing that cop around. Walked right up to that house and said, you see these doors right here? And he opened them up and walked right in there. You see all this furniture? That's my furniture. And you see that bedroom? You walk that cop over, opening the bedroom doors. You see that bed? That's my bed. You see that woman? My wife. You see that man lying next to her? That's me. Yeah. I had to go bail him out of jail. My brother don't laugh because I've been telling that story for 30 years. He just got, oh, yeah, heard that before. Yeah. But one time he said my brother was cruising down the res. He was half shot back before he got into wellness. Cop pulled him over, broke his tail light. That cop was a nice guy though. He said, hey, I pulled you over, you got broke your tail light. Just make sure you fix it, okay? My brother, oh, okay, shoot, that's good. I thought you pulled over because I don't have a driver's license. His girlfriend sitting next to him, shut up. Hey, officer, don't listen to him. You don't know what he's saying when he's drinking. Yeah. Hey, then the buddy in the backseat, he was passed out. Just then he woke up and saw that cop. Hey, what's the mean I stole this car? Yeah, all the jail. So, anyway, no, it's not. We're pulling the cane now, huh? Maybe our company want to sing us some songs. I'm going to sing to our evening time. Okay, all right. We're going to pass it. Open mic.
Again, thank you all for coming today, braving that storm. Usually we have I'm sure you're all familiar with conferences, you know, they're at the hosting hotels. Last year we did that, it's a good turnout. I decided we got this center here. And, man that's helping us out is very, he's a real good guy. He's a Palestinian, so he knows the struggle. So he's helping us out with the center and said he should stop by tomorrow, so we'll introduce him. He's a good man, right? And, tell one of my brother sitting downtown, to way back, and we used to think we were cool. Said, who's the toughest walk in the bar? Said, who's the toughest guy in there? Took his shirt off. Looked like a jackrabbit. Anyway. Took his shirt off. Said, who's the toughest guy in there? Somebody black, big bike. Cool. Said, hey, I am right here. My brother said, I'll take over, I'm leaving. That must skill the physicals. All right, we have our drum group, jam out a bit here. Get ready for a good meal, and Mitch Factor, he just text. So he's, like I said, he's standing around. Doesn't know what's loud, not like here.